Would like to welcome you to another episode of She Unleashed. She Unleashed, of course, is a podcast that is targeted to you as a corporate woman, or you're an entrepreneur, but you're looking at doing great things. You're looking to go global, you're looking at pivoting in what you're doing, and we bring you the best across the world. We bring you the best women who have been out there, they've done it, either in their personal capacity in corporate environments or on their own as business owners. Today, we have a pleasure of introducing someone very special to me, who is an amazing lady who's really done amazing things in the world. Her name is Dr. Yvonne Thompson. She is the founder of an organization called WinTrade. And with that, she has a host of accolades that she will tell us about, and has an amazing history that she relates, which will be of interest to you because it speaks to how the persona that we see today as Dr. Yvonne was formed. Dr. Yvonne, welcome, and it's such a pleasure to have you on board.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm really looking forward to talking to and hopefully inspiring your audience.
Absolutely. Dr. Yvonne, you have such amazing credentials. You have two doctorates, I understand.
Yes.
And you are an international speaker. I've seen you doing amazing things in amazing platforms, and the recent one being the She Committee, where I've received raving reviews about what you just took over the stage and did. And you have an amazing story to tell. Tell us about your involvement. What else are you involved in? I know you are a chairperson of a radio station as well. If you can talk to us about just the things that you get busy with as Dr. Yvonne.
Okay, so I do like to share my journey from the time that I arrived in the UK. And it's not so much to say, to impress you, but it is to impress upon you that if I can come from such humble beginnings to where I am now, anybody can do it. So my journey in the UK, or to the UK, started from Guyana, South America, where one day I was literally running around in cane fields, and the next day we were in the UK, arriving in April, so round about this time, actually, just before my birthday in April. And, I was a very young girl. This was nearly 60 years ago, more than 60 years ago, actually. And I'd never seen fog before. I'd never seen snow before. I'd never been so cold before. It was quite a frightening experience. But that also was the start of me building my resilience, because we arrived in the UK, my parents and five siblings, including me, six young children. And they literally picked up everything we owned, or we put as much as we could into one suitcase each, all our valuables into one suitcase each. And that's what we arrived in the UK with. Wow. And my parents always talk about arriving with much more than that, because they arrived with a backpack of dreams for each of their kids.
Wow.
And I am very humbled and honored and pleased that I think each of those kids have, actually lived up to those dreams in one way or another. We've all lived up to those dreams. So it's amazing. As I said, we arrived in Battersea, and Battersea at the time was one of the most deprived areas in London at the time. So it was the poorest area. We probably lived in the poorest street in the poorest area, and we had 2 rooms for 8 of us.
Wow.
And back then, even that was a luxury. So, I've not always, I didn't start from here. I started from very low beginnings. And I think the lower you start, the higher you spring, or the more energy, the more determination and resilience. And that was definitely built into me by my parents. To this day, I still have one of the habits that my mother actually passed on to me, which was getting up really early. I'm always up around 5 o'clock in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I have to get up. I'm not one of these people that can stay in bed, because I just feel that, life is so short. I need to make every moment count. And that's my, that's my ethos. That's my way of living. I'm not going to go through the full, everything that happened, but that's just where we began from. My parents, as many migrant parents, believed that they were invited over by the Queen. But of course, when we arrived, we expected to be welcomed with open arms, and it was a very, very different story. It was a time when landlords still could put notices on their doors that said, no Irish, no dogs, no blacks. So you can imagine when we arrived, the disappointment, but there was no going back. We could only move forward. And I was determined to move forward. Now, skipping my school years, my, my infant years, my school years, my college years, at that time, I don't think I know of any Black people my generation that went to university. I still don't. I don't. So, young people today have a lot to be grateful for, certainly in the UK. I know there's lots that could be better, but they have a lot to be grateful for, because back in my day, Black people going to university just wasn't ever going to happen, so I never went to university. I was never educated in university. I have since gone on to, talk in universities, even lecture in universities, but I wasn't university educated. So skipping all of the educational bits, my very first job and the very first time that I really kind of was hit in the face, if you like, by sexism and racism was at my very first permanent job. And this was CBS Records. Yeah. At that time, the music industry was full of prejudice, not only, both gender and race. So there weren't that many women around. So to have a Black woman, in a record company was unusual. Or to have a woman in record companies was unusual. To have a Black woman was even more unusual. And to have a Black woman who was a single parent by the time I joined was even more so. I was there for 7.5 years, and throughout I applied for positions that I was either deputizing in or standing in for when people were ill, on holiday, or had left. Which was, I went into the marketing and PR office, the press office, and I deputized for head of press a few times, but was never, ever offered the job. And on the third time of being refused, I thought, you know what, the only way for me to move up is to move out. So I did what girls do, ran into the toilets, the ladies' toilets, had a really good cry, and then came back and handed my notice in.
Wow.
And of course, at that time, everyone was saying, are you sure you're doing the right thing? You've got a daughter. How are you going to educate your daughter? Where are you going to live? How are you going to feed yourself? I said, I'm going to start my own business. And there was another hurdle. 40 years ago, 40 years ago, again, it was not the done thing for women to start their own businesses. Definitely not a Black woman, and definitely not a Black single woman, and definitely not a Black single parent woman in the PR industry, because the PR industry, again, was another male-dominated area. But I found a niche because at that time, we had, it was just the beginning of when Black American singers were coming over to the UK. Some of the UK artists were just beginning to rise up, but they had no marketing or PR representation outside of the record company. And the record company did not know how or where or who to promote these people to. So I found myself with working with a lot of Black artists, UK, Jamaica, US. And then it moved on to theatre, and it just grew and grew and grew. So I started the first Black-owned PR company in the UK.
Wow.
Because of the, and that's recorded by the industry body, or industry Bible, I should say, which is PR Week. I had a huge double-page spread, which I think I still have somewhere, that talked about, who I am, what I'm doing. So with that, I started being approached by lots of different organizations. But before I left the record company, I was working with a magazine, again, another first in the UK, the UK's first Black-owned monthly glossy magazine for women. And that was called Root magazine. And I was the music editor for that magazine. So there again, another first Black-owned PR company, first Black glossy magazine, monthly glossy magazine in the UK for the Black community.
Wow.
From that, we ended up closing the magazine, but then I was invited to be part of an application for a Black music radio station, because by then, the mid 80s towards the 90s, there were a lot of what we call pirate stations, illegal radio stations, and the government was looking for a way of what they thought would stamp that out by giving us the opportunity to hear the music we wanted to hear. Because before then, before Choice FM, if you wanted to hear, you can rarely hear reggae music or calypso music or gospel music. You could hear soul music, which was American music, but only once a week at 11 o'clock on one radio station. So we thought, we're a whole community here, and we need to hear what we want to hear. So we applied for a license to start the first legal Black music radio station. We won that license, and Choice FM was born. So first Black PR company, first glossy magazine, first radio station for the Black community. And again, because of that, I was constantly being approached. All of a sudden, the government recognized that, they need to reach what they called hard to reach communities. So I was approached by the government to do marketing and PR. I was approached to sit on various boards and various committees advising the government. But I also realized that it's fine me being there, turning up, and being, more often than not, being the only female and or the only person of color, either at networking events or sitting on some of these boards. So what I did, I started the first Black Women in Business network 23 years ago.
Without cutting you there, I know we're going to get to that, because that is the significant part of today's session. It's you and the significance and the we that I keep on hearing you talk about. Now, tell me, what is it about Dr. Yvonne that the government saw, the people saw, that kept on making them invite you? What do they see in Dr. Yvonne? In Yvonne then? It was not even doctor then.
No. So for me, I think, I don't sit there. I don't wake up every morning and think, what is it? I just do what my heart tells me to do, what I feel needs to be done, what I think is right to be done. And, and from doing those, it has, raised my profile. People started believing in me, seeing what I'm doing, seeing I'm not just starting something for me alone. And I think that's what kind of, brings more people towards me. I wouldn't say I've naturally got a magnetic personality, but when people come to me for help, I'm really, open to helping others by sharing what I know or what I can give or what support I can give, which is why I started the Women in Business Network. And again, over the 23, 24 years, I've helped literally thousands of women, and I constantly get even up to just recently, someone was telling me how they've been to, they remember coming to my women's events, profiling the annual dinners, the annual awards, the meetings, opening access to corporates like the banks. I would get the banks to host us for breakfast once a month. I would get organizations like Deloitte, EY, and now more so organizations like Google to host us for meetings. So it's not, it's a difficult question. I think you'd have to ask someone else why Dr. Yvonne. All I know is that I get up with a purpose, I get up with a passion, and throughout the day, that's what keeps me going, my purpose and my passion. And my purpose is around trying to help others. And I think also because of the network, because of the work that I've done, because of some of the boards that I've sat on, the first mayor for London, I was on a board member advising around race, ethnicity, marketing, PR, communications, and women. Again, because of that work, 2003, I was invested by the Queen with a commander of the British Empire. And even that is unusual because that is one from the very top. So to go in at that level was quite unusual. So somebody recognized the work I was doing as being valuable. And I continue to do that. Later on, I was, again, acknowledged with an honorary doctorate from London Metropolitan University. And that, I tell a little story that when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be in the caring profession. But I say that I am in the caring profession because I'm in marketing, PR. I help people with their profile. I help people with their business. I support people. And I am now a doctor twice over, not medical, but I have been, So King's College, one of the best universities in London, and also Plymouth University. Also, so I've got 3 doctorates. I think I'm losing track, but I also have been awarded with 4 fellowships, again from universities across the UK. So the work I'm doing continues to be recognised, and I'm happy to do that. So talking about boards, again, apart from the equality and diversity issues that we still have in the UK, and I've been an advocate for as long as I've been in business, so nearly 40 years, I work very closely now, actually advising government around Black businesses. I was part of something called the Parker Review, where we talked about the need to get more minorities on FTSE 100 boards. I'm still part of that review and pushing to promote and try to open up those doors with the corporates. I worked with the gender, and yes, the gender one worked over a period of 10 years, and that is running quite well. But even that was a struggle at the beginning. But I think that's worked because it's focused on gender, which is mostly white women. And so the chairman of the FTSE 100 boards feel more inclined to accept people who look like them and who may also be, their sisters, their daughters, their wives, their girlfriends, somebody they know. But when someone like me appears, I think most of it is done out of fear. And one thing, the refusal is done out of fear. And some of the things that I've been promoting and trying to get over to, senior management in these organizations is they need to start to get comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations or feeling uncomfortable when somebody like me sits in front of them. They need to learn how to have that difficult dialogue because until they do, They won't, diversity is so rich, diversity of thought, diversity of culture, creative diversity, the whole span of diversity could add so much to the bottom line of some of these organizations, yet they're leaving it on the table because of fear. Go ahead.
So you seem to have been aware of inclusion from such a young age. Your first job, you realize that I can do the job. I'm good enough to be an acting deputy, but not get to the point of having the job. And yet, in also what you're doing, in what you've been building, you've always been building, and not saying that I'm only building for Yvonne, because I believe in my own capability. You've also believed in capability of others. And the significant place where I first saw or heard about you was through a She community platform. Where you were meant to be giving a speech. It was an invitation, and it was an invitation to you because they've seen you, Dr. Yvonne. But you couldn't stop, even in that platform, and not be an advocate to say, there are many others where I come from. How can I be invited and I'm the only Black person in this room of so many people? Where does this advocate in you come from?
Well, the advocate in me comes from not wanting to be the only person in that room. I know there are so many other women of color that could add so much more. And I'm so glad that Heidi and Victoria actually, stood up, because they said, we promised. They were looking to host a global event. And I said, there's no way that this could be global if you don't represent women across the globe, including women of color. And I understand that they're based in Norway, and I know the demographic of Norway. But if you're calling yourself a global organization, you've got to have representatives or people, or be attracting people that are from a global, background, dare I say it. But I keep saying on that day, I always count the hurdles. But on that day, not only was I the only woman of color in the room, definitely at my time of the speech. I think I did see some others, but not many at all. But definitely at my time of my talk, I was the only person of color in that room. But there were very few, there probably were some, but there were very few what I call silver surfers, and even when you're a silver surfer, you still have so much more to give back because you've already done that length of time. You've got so much to share and pass on to the younger people. So for me, I think of diversity with the intersectionality of race, of age, of gender, of neurodiversity as well. This is the other thing that we have to be aware of. And I always feel that having diverse people around the table, in fact, it's not just me. McKinsey, one of the large consulting partnerships, have done several, and I think it's not only McKinsey, but they are widely quoted. One of their bits of research showed that having women on your boards gives you a 15% uplift from your competitors. Having a diverse board gives you a 35% uplift. Again, there's all this money, all this opportunity, people are leaving on the table. They don't allow you to share what I call your culture ad that could make such a big difference. Because right now, when you walk into those rooms, I mean, I often think to myself, how would white companies or white organizations or white directors applying for a job, how would they feel if they walked into a boardroom and we were all black? Now, they would say there's seriously something wrong with that company. So why is it not the other way around? Why do they not see and understand walking into a room of what I call male, pale and stale? What good is that? All you're getting is the same regurgitated, the same, it's like having stale air refiltered through your air conditioner.
True.
You're just getting the same thing over and over again, and eventually it's going to fog your mind.
Absolutely. Now, you are a founder of WinTrade, and you have a lovely story to tell of how it started way back about 10 years now in existence.
Well, WinTrade is actually the metamorphosis of my women's network I started 23 years ago. So as I said, when I started, it was called the European Federation of Black Women Business Owners, a big, long American name, because it was born out of being a chapter of an American organization called the National Federation of Black Women Business Owners. And that first came about because, many, many years ago, over 23 years ago, a delegation of Black businesses, women business owners, came from the US. And I was invited to talk to them and tell them about Black businesses in the UK. And they were very surprised to know and see that there were Black women in business in the UK. Wow. So they got quite excited. As their main host for the time that they were there, they then invited me back to the US to one of their events, which I did. And it was the most powerful. I still get that feeling.
Wow.
Remembering when I walked into the Hyatt Hilton in Washington, D.C. and saw a room full of powerful Black women for their awards luncheon. Hillary Clinton came to speak, and that was the first time I met Hillary Clinton. And then I was their first international awardee, because I think they'd been running for 24 or 25 years before then, and they'd never awarded anyone outside of the US. So I still have my trophy as the first international awardee for the national. So anyway, I was so inspired. I thought, this is exactly what we need. This is exactly what we need in the UK. So I came back and I started the European Federation. It was meant to be, I said the European Federation, it was meant to be just the UK, but it literally did become European, because we had women from Germany, from Portugal, from Spain, from France, practically all over Europe. Women came, Black women came, and we continued, we grew, we networked. We then started a chapter in France, a chapter in Holland. We don't have chapters anymore, but we still have representatives in Germany, in Spain, in Italy. So we still have quite a good network, a European network. As time went by, as I said, we were hosted by the banks, because they were all of a sudden realizing, hey, there's a Black economy that we can tap into. And they were hosting us and supporting and sponsoring us. And then for our 10th anniversary, we had over 1,200 Black women for our awards at the Grosvenor House Hotel on Park Lane. And I think that was the first time there'd been so many Black people in the Grosvenor House Hotel in the UK. When we launched with, we invited Martin Luther King Jr. III.
Wow.
Must get that right. He came. Martin Luther King's son came and launched with us at the Houses of Parliament. That was the first time there'd been so many Black people in the Houses of Parliament, certainly in the House of Lords. So again, there were so many firsts. It was was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful time. Of course, we've gone on. And whilst I was always pushing to promote Black women in business, we came to a point where I thought, we're talking about equality and diversity. We have to stop positioning ourselves as the underdog. We have to let them know that we're equal. And so I changed the name from European Federation of Black Women to Women in Trade, and that was WinTrade. There were so many organizations with the title Women in Business. I thought to differentiate who we are and what we do, because for me, if you're in business, you better be trading. So Women in Trade, WinTrade. Was born probably about 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago now. And again, it was just through the feeling of, or wanting to ensure that if we're looking to be equal and diverse and inclusive, we all have to be sitting at the same table at the same time, hearing the same information, because if we're getting it secondhand, we're getting the interpretation of somebody who might have been sitting at that table. But if we're all there hearing it, it's up to us how we interpret it and how we use it. And then if we don't find the best way of using it, then it's down to us. You've been the opportunities, I love equal opportunities. And I've come up more recently with a couple of acronyms, and one of them is what the corporates need to do. We have corporate social responsibility, but within that, we need personal social responsibility. So never mind CSR, it's really down to PSR, personal social responsibility. And then the corporates need to think about, about access, and it's about access to opportunities, it's access to finance, it's access to contracts. There was so many different things, and we just, all we need is access. We need equal access. And if they're serious about moving forward, picking up all that money that's left on the table, they just need to give us more access.
And now tell me, Dr. Yvonne, in all your, the perspective now of having seen the progress of women from, way back when you saw the introduction of women in business, starting to grow and to become a big kind of movement.
Yeah.
How do you think the narrative has changed from when it all started to where we are now and where we are going towards now into the future?
Well, for me, that change and that access, again, I often say it's not a moment in time, it's a movement in time. And we have to keep our eyes on that movement and keep pushing the ball in the right direction. So when we're talking about women in business, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. So many things have changed. Men in general have become a lot more accepting. Women are more ambitious. Women have now, I think the majority, I'm sure I read something recently that women are now the majority breadwinners in the majority of most homes, certainly in the UK. So, we have, but that gives us twice as much to do because we're the breadwinners. We're doing running our own business, but we're still, at the end of the day, going back and looking after the kids, and the husband, whether he's working or not, we're still doing that. So I don't know if in many ways, whether that's equality, It's equality of access, because we have access, we can run our own businesses. But we're still doing much more. We're still doing a lot more. The other thing that is not equal is access to finance for women. You know, I'm sure you've heard and you've seen, and being part of the World Business Angels Forum, you will know that there's still a problem with women accessing funding and investment for their businesses. I think, again, with the world of tech, it's becoming a little more easier and a little more acceptable, but there's still a huge gap between the percentage of what men get and what women get. It's the same with pay, the equal pay. But the biggest, for me, hurdle is still between race, because yes, there's the females not getting, or women not getting access to finance, but then there's an additional burden or hurdle when you're a Black woman. That burden or hurdle is still there. We still have a long way to go.
Absolutely. And now, Dr. Yvonne, you are so involved in a lot of things. You're also a mentor to women. And in what you're doing, you're also seeing a lot of opportunities for women, which are probably vastly different to what you were exposed to when you started, because you literally were the person who had to be the trailblazer, you know, to kick barriers open. What would you advise to other women to start, looking out for opportunities that are availing themselves? And also, I think what we have a specific interest on you on is the fact that you always have the collective at mind. It's never about you. And the generation that we're in seemingly is the generation that wants to strive for the eye. Yeah. What can you teach us as the generation that comes after you, in as far as fighting more for significance and not just individuality?
Well, that comes right back to the motto of WinTrade, which I'm sure we've talked about before. And the motto for me is, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, let's get it right. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There's so much more benefit in having people around you who are your cheerleaders, who support you, who are there, who are able to pick you up, should you fall in time of need, someone to turn to, someone you can pick up the phone to, just like I can to you or you can to me, even though we're across, the other side of the world, or the top of the world and the bottom of the world, as you look at the map. And just imagine having that network globally and getting to know people globally, and having the creativity of diversity, because what I might find difficult, living in the UK, if I asked you about something in South Africa, you might have that solution. So for me, it's always about, again, it goes back to access and what you want and what you need access for. And having a good network of women globally, getting different opinions, different approaches, different solutions. For me, I'm very solution based. My partner always says to me, you can always find a solution. You can always, and sometimes I do it. Sometimes it might take longer than normal, but in the end, I find a solution. So it's about supporting each other, bringing each other along. I'm often asked, how do you deal with women who don't give access or don't help other women, or, block other women? What I would say is that they won't last very long with that attitude, because blocking other women that means they're alienating other women. And at some point, they're going to they will be blocked by that man. Then who do they turn to? So, that's one way of looking at it.
That is such a powerful statement. It just sums up everything about what we've spoken about today. Dr. Yvonne, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and just to glean into your wisdom. My last question to you is, you are always active. You are always doing something. And I know that you attribute this to your mother, who always was the industrious woman who she taught through, how she lived her life. But tell me, the quantum of the things that you are getting involved in currently are probably multiplied to what she had to deal with at the time. How do you re-energize? Because you really give me a run for my money as younger to you in terms of the things that you get involved in, the platforms you are visible in and the energy that you come with, because it's not just about the presence, it's the energy you bring to the table when you do appear. Where does all this energy come from?
Well, for me, I get a huge injection of energy when I know that I'm supporting somebody or businesses. It's like the universe just feeds me. It feeds me. And I always say that you can only truly do these things if you're passionate about it. And I always say my passion keeps me up late at night, and that same passion wakes me up early in the morning. So sleep gets in the way.
Wow. It's been an honor, and really this was such a rich interview, because you really are such a generous spirit by nature. You gave of you. And what I love about you is, the lesson that you always teach, that if I can do it, someone else can do it. You really humble yourself to that level of saying, if I could do it, anyone else can do it. I thank you so much for who you are as a woman. And it does not matter what you've seen and what experience you've had. You always open doors for everyone else. And I'm a real life, evidence of what you've done in life and how authentic you are as a woman. I really honor you, Dr. Yvonne. And thank you so much for coming on board. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with She Unleashed.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Wonderful to know you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There you have it, to our listeners. We bring you the best. And this was one significant interview for me, because the lady that we spoke to today is really what she is. So one final question, Dr. Yvonne. WinTrade is open to everyone.
Absolutely.
Tell our people how they can find you, how can they join and be part of WinTrade?
Ooh. Okay, so we have, I think our most popular link would be on LinkedIn. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. We're on all the platforms, or you can just search me. But you must search Dr. Yvonne Thompson, CBE, because until I joined LinkedIn, I didn't know there were so many Yvonne Thompsons in the world. So I have to distinguish myself by putting Doctor at the beginning, Yvonne Thompson, CBE. Otherwise, you'll get lots of other Yvonne Thompsons.
Awesome. There you have it, ladies. The ball is in your court. The invitation is open. WinTrade meets every Thursday, and they always have the amazing global speakers that speak across, topics. Last time was the lady
procurement
from IBM.
IBM, yes. But we've had a lot of amazing speakers. But if you're in business and you want to know how to do work with IBM, get in touch with us and we'll share the link with you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to our listeners, and we look forward to seeing you next. Thank you very much.